you're still not fluent in English or whatever language you're learning because of what you believe language learning is. So there's something called the be, do, have principle. Basically, it's this pyramid, right? At the top is what you have in life. And the concept is what you have in life, well, that's influenced by what you do, but then what you do is influenced by who you are. And so the idea is, look, if you're looking to change what you have in life, it doesn't necessarily start by focusing on changing what you do, but rather changing who you are, because that will impact what you do and that will eventually impact what you have. You get the point. We can take that general concept, make a couple slight adjustments, and copy and paste it to language learning. At the top, we have your language learning results. Well, that's influenced by your language learning methods. Most people get that. But then what actually influences your language learning methods? That will be your language learning beliefs. Meaning, in your opinion, in its simplest form, to learn a language, what does that even mean? Because at the end of the day, the language learning methods that you consistently go to, the ones that you are naturally most drawn towards, will always align with what you believe language learning is. And so if you've been doing this for a while now, and you're still not fluent by your own standards, or maybe you just simply want to improve your language learning results, I'd argue that starts with getting clear on what you believe language learning is and challenging those beliefs rather than obsessing over different language learning methods. Once you get clear on your language learning beliefs, you'll get clarity about your language learning methods. So you remember early 2021, right? Lockdown times. So that was when I decided, yeah, it's time to learn Spanish. So I pulled out the calendar, we're in February. I'm like, all right, cool. I want to be fluent by my birthday, which is November. So I'm like, 9 months. 9 months is what I have to reach fluency. And I gave myself the reward that if I did, I'd go back to Spain. Because I'd always wanted to go back to Spain after the school trip we had to Barcelona in 2016. Absolutely fantastical trip, by the way. Anyways, so today I say that learning a language is very much like going on this really long walk, whereby walking is just spending time in contact with the language. Back then, I didn't really realize that. All I knew was that, look, I have this destination in mind, which is fluency. And then I also have these checkpoints, which is like learning vocabulary, learning grammar, learning how to pronounce things. And my mindset was that, all right, cool. These checkpoints, number one, they're going to guide me to fluency. But then number two, they act as like a qualifier. And so once I've passed enough checkpoints to qualify for fluency, that's when I'll reach the destination of fluency. That was my language learning belief at the time. So based on that, I was very much drawn to language learning methods that were to do with studying. And at this point, I was doing whatever. Language learning apps, flashcards. I was doing some online lessons as well. I was doing like timed grammar exercises. I don't know if you know about those ones. I was also doing like studying song lyrics. I was also doing, you know, like when you watch movies, I didn't really understand it, but I was watching movies just to get the, you know, like they put the vocab at the bottom. I was grabbing the vocab, putting it into my Anki deck and putting it into like different flashcards. I could study it. And I was up to like 4 a.m. sometimes doing this. The challenge was, if I'm being completely honest, I didn't feel like I was actually getting closer towards fluency. Like I was progressing, don't get me wrong, I was progressing. But it's kind of like, you know, when you're being busy, but you're not actually being productive. You know what I'm talking about, right? It was one of those ones. I definitely say that some language learning methods are more effective than others, but that's not the point I'm trying to make at the moment. Like what I'm trying to emphasize is how what I did was just a reflection of what I believed. But not only that, or like what I believe also impacted the mindset that I went into these language learning exercises with. My mindset at the time was very destination focused. Like if we go back to our long walk analogy, I was very obsessed with the idea of reaching fluency, reaching that destination. And so I was always hoping that the next checkpoint would be the one to take me there. I'd say to myself, all right, cool. I just learned this list of vocabulary. I just learned this list of vocab. I just passed that checkpoint. That one didn't take me to fluency, but this next one, this one's going to be the one to take me there. Here I am struggling along. End of February comes, I'm struggling. March comes, struggling. April comes, I'm still struggling. But at this point, I'm starting to have serious doubts. Doubts in the sense that I'm starting to lose trust in my original language learning belief. Because up to this point, I was pretty sure that, you know what, the way you learn a language, simple. You just learn a list of vocabulary, you learn a list of grammar, you learn how to pronounce it all, then you move on to the next list. And then eventually you learn enough lists that you just qualify for fluency. So it's like the idea of like the checkpoints and the destination, right? But you know what, at this point, I'm starting to realize that, hang on, every time I finish learning a list of vocabulary, or every time I finish learning a list of grammar, another one appears. Every time. Which makes sense because the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. So it's like the more I'm learning, the more I'm unlocking new things to learn. But the challenge is these things that I've supposedly learned, I'm not actually able to identify them or use them in real-time conversations. And I didn't know this at the time, but that's because there's a difference between conscious knowledge and subconscious knowledge. I spoke about that in the last video. But overall, my point is like what was happening was technically I'm improving my conscious knowledge, or we can put it this way, I was becoming more aware of things to learn in Spanish, But when it comes to reaching fluency, I wasn't actually making notable progress. And for me, this was the start of the end, but in a good way. Because soon after this, I came across the second language learning secret, which if you apply alongside the first language learning secret that I explained in our last video, it will give you an unfair advantage. So I come across a secret and I realized, hang on, I'm going after all of these checkpoints. I'm looking for this destination. But the reality is there are no official language learning checkpoints. Like, there is no destination. There's just walking. And actually the fluency that we look for hides itself in the process of just walking. Why? Because the more you walk in an area, the more you can actually start to navigate that area without a map or even without thinking about it. Like, that's what fluency is. It's just your ability to navigate a language without thinking about it. And so based on that, there's this quote that I absolutely love. I actually got it from the book Atomic Habits, I think, whereby it says, the person that loves walking will always walk further than the person that just loves the destination. We can translate that to language learning. And it'll be, look, the person that just loves spending time in contact with their target language will always spend more time in contact with their target language than the person that just loves the idea of becoming fluent. Once I understood that, it was a wrap. I started to, number one, enjoy myself, but number two, I started to progress really quickly. Eventually November comes, I do end up going to Spain. These were the results.
Consejo que lo hagas, que lo hagas. Si yo fuera tú, lo haría 100%, porque, bueno, no solamente porque vas a poder hablar con personas diferentes, vas a poder entender idiomas diferentes, que es fantástico, por cierto.
Definitely wasn't perfect in that. Definitely made some mistakes. I'm still making mistakes in Spanish today, still learning. But the point is, all of that kind of changed because I allowed myself to stop believing what I initially believed language learning was, and I allowed myself to form new beliefs. Now that did then lead me to make and change my methods, which, by the way, if you want like a full breakdown of like the different methods that I've used and like the different methods that there are and like how I feel which ones are more effective than others, let me know. But the main thing today is like, all right, cool. How does someone actually go about changing their language learning beliefs? There's 6 steps. Number 1 is to find someone that has the results that you're looking for. Right, number 2, do exactly what they say for a long enough period to get a practical understanding of the theory that they preach. Number 3, identify the things that work for you and identify the things that don't work for you. Number 4, disregard the stuff that doesn't work for you, or just hold it to the side for a second. We'll come back to it. You can make adjustments to it once you get more information. Number 5 is to repeat that process for other people that also have the results that you're looking for. And number 6 is to bring together all of the findings, including the things that didn't work for you, and create a simplified definition of what language learning is. Now, if you're thinking, you know, it actually kind of sounds long, like I don't know if I can be asked to do that. Don't worry, it's all right. You know how there's always that guy in school that actually did the homework so then everyone else could just copy the answers? Today, I'm going to be that guy, all right? So here's my definition. To learn a language is to build a strong personal relationship with the language as if it were a person. Every single person, knowingly or unknowingly, regardless of the methods that they've used, every single person that's actually become fluent in a language has done this, period. The reason why I can speak English is because I have a strong enough personal relationship with English to be able to do so. The reason why I can speak Spanish is because I have a strong enough personal relationship with Spanish to be able to do so. The reason why I don't speak any of the remaining 7,115 languages that exist on this planet Earth fluently isn't because of lack of intelligence. It's not because of lack of talent. It's not because I don't have a good teacher. It's not because I'm not able to travel to the countries where they speak these languages. It's not because I don't know anyone that speaks these languages. It's because I haven't yet built a strong enough personal relationship with any of them. Simple. So the question is, how does one actually go about strengthening that relationship? Well, in the same way you did so with your best friend, by spending a lot of time with them. Not to be confused with spending a lot of time learning about them. I'll give you an example. Let's say there was a girl that I liked, right? Let's call her Amy. And let's say, yeah, I want to get to know Amy. Like, I want to build a personal relationship with her. I do so by spending a lot of time with her rather than spending a lot of time learning facts about her. Not that the facts aren't important, but by knowing facts alone, a personal relationship isn't built. But if I'm to spend a lot of time with her, number 1, I'd get to learn these facts about her anyway, naturally, in context, with enough time. But number 2, I'd start to get a practical understanding of her intricacies and how these facts apply to how she actually is or how she actually acts in real life. I'll give you an example. So let's say a fact could be, Amy likes coffee, fantastic. But then the practical understanding will be, yeah, I mean, that's true, but that's only on Wednesdays, right? Because on Wednesdays, she has to go to the office and she has to get the tube for 15 minutes. So she likes to get the coffee with the croissant as well. So she can ride on the tube with the coffee. But if it's not Wednesday, then she prefers to have like hot chocolate. And if it's hot chocolate, then she needs to get it from Costa because that's where they have the brownie there. So she can get the hot chocolate and the brownie. But then if it's the weekend, then she prefers to have tea. right? She has the matcha tea. Is that what you guys call it? Do you see what I'm saying? Do you get the point? The truth is, like, these are some of the things that you kind of learn accidentally. Like, I wouldn't wake up one day and say, you know what, my goal today is to learn which hot drinks Amy likes. It's kind of these are the type of things that just, with time, they just come up, right? And I think as language learners, sometimes we forget that there are some things that are just revealed with time rather than learnt by force. And that's how you get to the point where you know how someone would react in a situation that hasn't even happened yet. Like, you know what they say, what they wouldn't say, what they'd think, what they wouldn't think, what they'd feel, what they wouldn't feel. Perfect example of this is, if you remember when you're young, and let's say you're driving home and you're feeling hungry, you look out the window, you can see the McDonald's, you want to go to McDonald's. But now you have to convince your parents. So it's like, all right, cool. If I ask my mom, she'll probably say no, she'll probably say there's food at home. If I ask my dad, my dad could actually say yes. But then the best thing would be if I could convince my cousin to ask my mom, then we'll probably go. It's like those little tricks, or those little quirks. I could be wrong, but I don't think there's a theory behind it. I don't think there's a fact that you need to learn that. It's more of like, once you get to the point whereby you spent enough time with someone, you know just inside yourself what they'd say, what they wouldn't say, how they'd react. And my point is, the same thing happens with a language. Like, you can get to the point whereby you just know, like, nah, that doesn't sound like something that Spanish would say. Or, you know what? Yeah, no, Spanish would actually say that. Or, you know what? I don't think Spanish would express himself like that. Or, you know what? Spanish would express himself like that. And for me, that's the key. The only difference is, for example, in the case of Amy, she could turn around tomorrow and say, you know what? I don't want to spend time with you. Leave me alone. That will be the end of it. There's no more personal relationship there. The beauty is, a language can't do that. It can't reject you. If you decide that you want to spend more time with a language, it will say, okay, cool, let's spend more time. It will spend more time with you. But if you decide that, you know what, I don't want to spend any more time with it, I want to spend less time with this language, it will say, okay, cool. My point is, as long as you're continuously developing that relationship, not only will you eventually succeed, but as long as you don't stop, it becomes impossible to fail, literally. Now, bear in mind, what I just went through there, that's my own personal language learning belief. That's the conclusion that I came to. It's what worked for me. You might hear that and say, okay, that actually makes sense. But at the same time, you might listen to that and say, what absolute waffle. This guy has no clue what he's talking about. That's not what language learning is at all. Either way, I'm happy. Because as confident as I am in my own language learning beliefs, the second language learning secret isn't that you need to believe what I believe. No, that's not the secret. Secret is to get clear about what you believe and test those beliefs more than anything. Because if you can get that right, fluency will work itself out.